Worldwide, the numbers are much worse. More than 8 in 10 non-Christians do not personally know a Christ follower. Todd Johnson, one of the researchers for the study, said that relatively small gestures, like inviting families into your home, can have a bigger impact than any kind of mission campaign. He said we should really have lifelong friendships with Hindus, Buddhists, and so on. It's so simple, yet it becomes a big deal. So we go out of our way to tell the story of the way. Having identified with his audience, Paul shares his story, the report of his conversion. And there's some interesting points that really matter. This account has a great emphasis on light. Paul specifies that it was around noon when he saw the light, which meant it must have been a very bright light indeed. Here Paul says that his companions saw the light but did not understand the voice he had heard speaking to them. Paul does not mention Ananias' dialogue with the Lord, where he was commanded to go to Paul, but he adds a new point important to his audience about Ananias being a devout follower of the law and highly regarded by the Jews living in Damascus. Also new is the word from God communicated by Ananias that Paul was to be a witness to all people. And so he goes on to explain his conversion on the Damascus road. Jewish tradition valued the light of God and viewed Israel as its guardians and agents who were to give it to the Gentiles. Yet, as John would later explain, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not understood it. Jesus came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become the children of God. This Jewish model belonged to the majority of God's people who were rejecting the light, and Paul belonged to the minority who received him and carried on the tradition of bearing the light. Bible scholar N.T. Wright uses the analogy of waiting in the morning for how some people come to Christ through a dramatic, instant conversion, and others come to Christ through a gradual conversion. Sometimes it is an absolute turnaround, just like it was for Paul on the road to Damascus, a radical conversion. And for others, it's more like the disciples on the road to Emmaus who walk along with Jesus, and he prods their souls with questions, and finally their hearts burn within them. For some of us, it takes a long time. We find ourselves in church, and we're here looking around in amazement, trying to really get a grasp of what it means to be a child of God. And it takes a while for that realization to happen. And so sometimes conversion is instantaneous and radical, and sometimes it's slow and a process of maturing, but nonetheless real. Paul describes visions from God, 2 visions. One, he saw the risen Lord, which resulted in his conversion, to which he considered a resurrection appearance. And about 3 years after his conversion, God warned Paul of the danger of staying in Jerusalem and told him to leave. In this vision, God gave Paul direction for his life. And Paul was in prayer when God spoke in a vision. So prayer tunes us to God and makes us receptive to his voice. And while Paul was in prayer, God warned him about the dangers of something he was eager to do. His heart's desire and prayer to God for the Israelites was that they may be saved. And this was what he was doing. Relating to them, meeting them on their ground and on their terms. And isn't that what God does with us all the time? He meets us where we are to take us where we want to be. So when we're witnessing to someone who doesn't understand the gospel, we don't do it in a confrontive, combative manner. We build a relationship with them. We begin to share what Jesus has done in our lives and how he's changed our life. And then we begin to talk in terms that they will understand. Some of you may remember Evangelist Leighton Ford, who used to be a right-hand man of Billy Graham. He was also an evangelist. And he met once with the former boxing champion Muhammad Ali at a hotel in Sydney, Australia. Ford listened as the account goes as Ali regaled a group of admiring onlookers before introducing himself as Billy Graham's brother-in-law. That's who Leighton Ford was. Ali's face lit up as he said, "Oh, Billy, I love Billy. I went up and saw him at the house at Montreat, and he signed a book for me." Ford relates what happens next. He said, "We got into a very interesting conversation. He was not only very articulate, he was also a very bright man. Of course, earlier in his life, Ali had become a Muslim. But he told me and the onlookers, you know, I have traveled all over the world and I have seen all these different religions. It seems to me," said Ali, "that they all have the same thing. It's kind of like you have a river, you have a lake, and you have a pond, and you have a stream, but they all have water in them. So they're all the same, aren't they?" I said, "Muhammad, that's very interesting. But suppose you have all of them, and suppose they are all polluted. Then you would need a purifier, wouldn't you? You see, that's who Jesus is. He's the purifier." And he thought about that, Ali did, for about a moment. And he said, "That's good. I never thought about it quite like that. Jesus, the purifier." Leighton Ford went on to say, "I know that Muslims don't refer to Jesus as the Son of God because they interpret that as blasphemous. So he said, did you know that the Bible says that Jesus is the second Adam?" And he said, "I didn't know that." Leighton Ford said, "Yes, you see, there was a first Adam that God made in the first creation. Then the second Adam was Jesus, the new creation, in whom everyone became new." And Ali said, "I need to think about that." Leighton Ford never saw Ali again, and I don't know how Ali's story ended. But I admire the lengths to which Leighton Ford went to identify with him in revealing the gospel story. We have to go out of our way to share the way. And that's going to become more and more necessary as we deal with a world where people don't understand faith. And they've heard all kinds of negative things about Christianity. They have to see our lives. They have to see what we passionately believe. And that's all that God asks of us. That we go out of our way to show others His way. And you let Him do the rest. So the question is, will you go out of your way to share the way of Christ? Let's pray. Heavenly Father, bring us to the realization that it matters how we talk about the unchanging, timeless truths of the gospel. How we approach people. And so we ask, Lord, that we may care for them and love them enough in your name, that we may take the time to do that, to care about how we share the way. In Jesus' name.